We talk a lot about gardens. I talk a lot about gardens because I have a garden. My wife has a garden. Actually, my wife and I have a garden. My wife more has a garden than I have a garden. Our church has a garden. In the beginning, one of the things that God made was a garden. And then God placed humanity in the garden and gave them a task, gave them a role, gave them some work, gave them something to do in that garden, gave them something to do over all creation. Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and govern it. Reign over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and all the animals that scurry along the ground. This garden, this creation, is the thing that we as humans were placed in charge of. The way I drew this last Sunday was God was at the top and he created. I drew an arrow straight down to creation. Do you remember that? And then when we got to the part where it talked about God creating mankind, I erased that arrow, that solid arrow, and I put humanity in the middle of it, and I drew an arrow from God to the person and then from the person to creation. And that's because we have the role of tending to creation, of nurturing it, of caring for it, ensuring that the garden thrives. And I mean, this stuff just writes itself, right? We ensure the garden thrives when we make sure that it has water, the right amount of water. We ensure that the garden thrives when we make sure that it gets the proper amount of sun. So maybe we trim back plants around the garden. Maybe we trim back the garden itself. Jesus has a nice little analogy for that in John 15. You should go and read that. To make it more fruitful, to make it more productive. I think I said we pull weeds. If I didn't say we pull weeds, we pull weeds. We cultivate the ground. We make sure that the ground has what it needs in order to be able to sustain the garden. When it's time to take the fruit off of the garden, we do that. We pull the fruit off that's ready to be eaten, ready to be consumed, so that more fruit will grow. We pull things off that maybe go rotten, so it doesn't ruin the rest of the plant. For our context, this is debatable. Well, this part isn't debatable. For our context, we make sure that insects don't destroy the garden. We do things to keep insects away, to make sure that the garden is properly cared for and stewarded. And this isn't just about gardens, this is about all of God's creation. So, we should do things like not litter, because littering does not steward God's creation very well. On Sunday, I talked about crop rotation, how sometimes we put crops here that add nutrients to the ground so that the next year we can plant crops there that take nutrients from the ground. So we want to be good stewards. We want to understand our environment. We want to understand how creation works so that we can properly, faithfully tend it. And tending the garden is all of our role and responsibility. Each and every person has the responsibility to care for the world that God has made. And not just care for the world that God has made, but to care for the things that have been created. So that's plants and animals, certainly other people. So we have a task of ruling and reigning because we are connected to creation. My hope and my prayer for you today is that you will consider how you are connected to creation, that you will consider your own role in ruling and reigning over creation. And then you would take steps to do that thing, that you would fulfill. Christians, theologians call this the cultural mandate, that you will fulfill the cultural mandate and care for what God has created. Love you. Praying with you. Praying for you. Have a good rest of your day.